Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York City Hammond B-3 organist and pianist Brian Charette. Currently in New York City, he logged a lot of time in the Chech Republic and in Europe overall. Over the course of our conversation, he talked about his recent June 2015 release of his album called Alphabet City, jamming with cats like Lou Donaldson when he was younger, his dual career as a writer, what the future may hold, and who he thinks he really is, along with many more little surprises. Please dig this interview, my friends.
So growing up, when you were a kid, what did you envision yourself doing when you grew up? What did you dream of doing?
I would be playing music from very early. I remember being 8 and fantasizing about playing bass when I would watch Night Ranger videos, like
nice.
Sister Guy with the bass.
Oh, yeah.
So I never really saw myself doing anything else, and I was so early, I guess, I didn't have time to think about that somehow.
Yeah.
You know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So lineage in music kind of started early on. You got hooked up with Lou Donaldson and Houston Pearson. How did that come about?
Well, I was in Hartford, Connecticut, and I was very friendly with someone who was booking those guys. He was also a musician in Wheeler. When they would come to town and they would need a band, he would put me in their band.
Cool.
So I ended up those guys. I almost played with more of those guys when I was really young than I do now.
What was that age? I mean, you're
terrifying. No, it was cool, but I had to be pretty pro, pretty early, I guess. Like it was something that I really seriously, and I was very voraciously at the time. That's all I was doing. So it was important to me, and I knew that it was a big deal, and I wanted to do a good job. I think I was thinking very much the same as I think now about it, I guess I had to grow up quickly, doing that stuff.
But what lessons did you learn with the Virgin Eyes, Fresh Brains, or next luminaries they're legends? What did you really pick up from them as stage bravado and just how to life?
Well, I learned that I had to know every song in every key, just immediately. I remember I played with Charles McPhee, and he played by in G, which is the key some older players play in, and I didn't know it, and I was... So I learned it in G, obviously, after that.
Yeah.
But, the greaters, they have a rapport with the audience. They're somehow that resonates with people, the power of music, and that's what I try to learn from these kinds of people and bring into my own presentations,
Yeah. So it meant that after you graduated from the Dean's List on 94, you immediately started touring Europe. How did that come about so quickly?
I was playing in a band in Hartford that was called Street Temperature. Bassist of that band, Bob Laramie, had been going tour. He was a Czech trumpet player, who was a star of the Chech Republic for jazz, and he had a very dramatic story. He left communism, had to leave his wife behind, and he had been just starting to go back where in the Chech Republic where he had not been. This is right after the Iron Curtain comes down, too, in 1990 or so. So fast forward a few years, guy's been playing with him, and we're playing in a group together. He mentions that he needed a keyboardist. So, and I guess this might have been 1994, 93, not so sure. But I auditioned for this guy. I think I had just graduated from college, and I started to go on tour a lot to the Chech Republic. And he's well known there. So it was, in a way, it might have been my first or second trip to Europe, playing for pretty big audiences. So the girls were super hot there, and continue to. And I love the country, so I started to go there playing a lot. And it almost like I set up kind of like home base there in the last years, where I'm less than I have been in the past, but I've been kind of living there a little bit half the time the last 4 or 5 years.
What's that like, to kind of contrasting the American culture and going over to Europe? Is it refreshing to do that, or what's that like?
Well, there's been bad things with both. The longer I'm away, it makes me really appreciate this country as well. If you want to get broccoli at 4 o'clock, you're going to do much around revenue, and than you will in Partizansky Slovakia. But there's a lot more space there. I almost feel like personal connections are deeper because it's more about friends Gender roles are very different. It's a lot different. The food is different. It's interesting to see, and I've spent so much time in that other place that I can really see very big differences, between the two cultures.
The one thing that's always been interesting to me about Europe is the level of antiquity that's there.
Yeah.
You feel that in the air that they've been around a lot.
Prague looks like it's in the Middle Ages. It has beautiful castles basically everywhere. I mean, it's like it's 1,500 years ago in a way.
Yeah.
Ever been to the city?
I know. I've heard that Prague is one of the most beautiful places.
It's the most beautiful things you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And people are also gorgeous. It's just beauty everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty amazing place.
Yeah, it's on my list. I've been to Europe and Prague's those places to get to.
Yeah, it's my favorite European city by far.
Yeah, that's what I always hear.
And they have an incredible arts scene there too. I mean, music and art. It's like really a fantastic place. I mean, that's where I think Mozart, in his delight, had been kind of not doing too much and went to Prague, and this is where he opened pieces, and came into prominence again. He went to Prague. A lot of people have been doing it for hundreds of years.
Yeah. So the one thing that I always hear about Europe too is that there's a deeper appreciation on certain ways with jazz, and the audience is kind of mass songs, and there's a level of appreciation that's different. Do you notice that?
Well, I think if you are from New York City and you play jazz, when you go to Europe, it still carries a lot of weight. Like people who are there and in jazz music, if they are coming from New York to play, I think it has a weight for some reason. The people are much more into the art. Like you see them much less on the handheld smartphones. You don't really see that too much there. Yeah. People have those things, but they're not like twiddling away all day long. I'm not sure. That may have been true a little bit more in the past. I think people are getting a little more homogenized. Like there's so much information and exchange between now that, I feel like audiences are very good wherever I am. I wouldn't go as far as the European audiences are better, this is better. I think 20 years ago when I started there, right after Iron Curtain came down, it was like I remember I was on gig and I had a small video camera, which wasn't really that rare for an American person to have at that time. But I remember being in the Chech Republic, and I took the video camera out, and people were gasping. They had never seen anything like that. I think that's a little bit less now. But there's still a lot of appreciation when you go there, especially if you're from New York. People really put emphasis on it, and so that's very clear from here.
Yeah. So what was that transition like in your life, Connecticut to New York?
Well, it kind of came about very actually on this tour in the Chech Republic with this guy telling you about, and watching a previous tour, and there was a gentleman playing piano who wound up being my roommate in New York City. He was playing the piano. I'm watching I'm like, well, I play great piano. Who's he? He said his name was Leon. He lived in New York City, just graduated from college, and was thinking about moving to New York. I told him I want to move to New York, so he gave me the guy's number. I called him when I was living in New York City 3 days later. It's a much easier time getting a place in New York than most people have, I think.
Yeah.
But that was the last time it was easy.
So let me ask you a question. You performed with jazz luminaries when you were young, and you've gone on to perform with Joni Mitchell, Chaka Khan, Paul Simon, and Cyndi Lauper. What's it like to work with folks outside of the jazz realm and to kind of have that well-rounded, kind of sense of music and being with other people?
Same, people.
Yeah.
I don't see all of these divisions, too, in this kind of music and that kind of music. I mean, it's all, my experience when I'm doing it is very much the same, like accessing is the same, So I try to be cool to those people. Most of the people I've worked for have been very nice. Yeah, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
We're all so similar,
Yeah.
And people talk so much about the differences between humans, but we're really having a very similar experience and very all alike. And the music, it's like just, I guess,
Yeah.
For me, it's very much the same.
Interesting. Very cool. So let me ask you this. You were voted as a rising star in 2010 in the organ category. When you get accolades and the recognition, what does it mean to you?
Well, it's certainly a validation. Other people see it and call me, which is amazing. But I try to dwell too much on it, because by another degree, it doesn't mean that much. Like, you still got to get up in the morning and you still, I felt that way with, like, that rising star especially. I'm like, oh, my God, I finally made it. And it made that a little less impact than I thought it would,
Yeah.
And it taught me to not put so much emphasis on these kinds of things. It is to feel like somebody likes it. I mean, that's kind of the whole point. That's the whole reason I play music is so people like it,
Absolutely.
So it's great validation, and it gives me, inspires me to do more, is the big thing of it. And, music for me is just like a vehicle for personal growth. I'm just trying to be the best person I can, and this is my particular vehicle for that. And if I'm encouraged by people to do more, that's feeding the process,
Yeah.
So it's a very good time for me right now for those things.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of vehicles, you have another vehicle other than music, as you mentioned at the top of the interview. Tell me a little about being a writer. How did you get into it, and what are you doing?
Well, I guess I started to write for Keyboard Magazine. I've known one of the editors, John Reed, for a few years. He's actually also a very popular keyboard artist. He said, and we've been friends for a while. And I wrote an article. My first was about scales of Olivier Messiaen. And people liked the art. So they started asking me to write more for them. And now I'm writing, I would say, monthly, twice monthly from. And from writing for them, I became interested in writing for different magazines, too. Like, I write for a Chech magazine. I also wrote a book about organ for Hal Leonard Publications. It's kind of the same to me. I'm just using words instead of notes. It's another way of communicating about music.
Yeah.
I also know Adam Small, who is a very good friend of mine who lives in Los Angeles now, has a service called My Music Masterclass where he does videos of musicians, and that's, people are interested in the video. They almost feel like they're more interested in the educational things than the albums sometimes. There's a big hunger for information.
Yeah.
And I like to do it. Both of my parents are teachers. I'm teaching now quite a bit. So it's just another facet of knowing about music,
Yeah. Well, speaking of popular albums, you released one on the 9th, Alphabet City. Talk to me a little bit about this release, the creativity that went into it, how you're promoting it, just the general feel for the album.
Well, kind of the idea of this trio is it's classic organ trio, which is organ, guitar, and drums, but it's with the addition of circuit-bent electronics. Circuit-bent electronics are when you take synthesize and you open them up and you put solder in the connections in the back, basically, so they fire, which gives you the sound from the synthesizer, but with many random variables.
Yeah.
So we try to use these sounds to create very industrial sound shapes as we play basically jazz organ music over the top. The grooves are a bit less traditional jazz and a little bit more funk, I would say. And that's the idea. We're trying to have an organ trio, but to bring it into the next century, I guess, the 21st century.
Right on. Is it fun making all of them?
Absolutely. It's fun making all of them. But that's my favorite part.
Yeah. How long does it take typically to make an album for Alphabet City?
It takes 4 hours.
That still blows my mind about jazz. Is that you hear sometimes, Radiohead's in the studio and
years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, how long did it take to make this album? They're like, like Blues, spaced over 3 sessions, hours. But I guess that's kind of.
These are mostly, these are all first and second takes. I don't even think we ever do third takes for any of the albums.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're a teacher. Your parents are teachers. You come from a lineage of that. Talk to me a little bit about who has been the most important or essential teacher in your life.
I'd say firstly my mother, who was a genius. And I would say Kenny Werner was very important for me. And I actually did not study with him for very long. Are you familiar with his approach to music and math and all of this stuff he talks about?
I have had him on the show glowingly.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think I was studying with him before there was even a book called Effortless Mastery. So this was, back then it was called the 5-Finger Exercise, which was a meditation. And I guess I was 16 or 17 when I met him for the first time. And I only studied with him a handful of times, but I was a very, oh my God, I was an overachiever, you know, and I was getting very nervous when I would play piano. I was very nervous to play. And I was very tight about music. I was very negative about my own playing. And he really freed me. And when I play music now, I feel very, I don't have any kind of negative thoughts or, oh my God, I don't sound, it never happens for me. And I'm convinced that was his influence. Like when I sit there and I touch the key, I go to a different place, and that's Kenny's thing. He would ask, you know, you'd be playing, and he would ask you things like, what temperature is the key? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it totally shakes your focus from this insecure approach to one of awareness, you know, and I think that is the thing that made, for music teachers, that's the one that that's the thing that made the biggest difference for me. Was also staying with a Boston named Charlie Benakis. Do you know this guy?
I've heard of it.
So Charlie is he's unfortunately not with us anymore, but his approach was totally different from Kenny Werner's. He was very, like I would fill up a book a week of writing exercises of these different things that he'd be showing us. But he was very representative of the Boston school of jazz, like Brecker kind of style, Mike Stern. I think all of these I studied with him. You know? So I was studying both of the guys at the same time. I would say those were my big teachers for music.
Interesting. So when you look back on your life and you think about all of the years you've been playing, when did you play the best? When was your output of prolific nature?
It's right now.
Cool.
It's right now.
Very cool.
That's why I'm trying not to screw up so badly.
Very nice. Nothing wrong with
that. That's why I stay away from Czech girl now.
There you go. There you go. We'll get you in trouble every time. So, you know, you always hear that there's this moment where possibly an album parted some curtains for you. Little jazz, pop, or rock. Where and how blew your mind?
It was 3 for me. The first time I heard Jaco Pastorius' solo album.
Yeah.
The first time I heard Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard Tabla, an album called Memorable Tabla, duet with Zakir Hussain and his father Ustad Ala Raka. Those are my those three times in my life when I listened to music and it knocked me on the floor.
Interesting. Yeah. Who would you consider your jazz heroes?
For organ?
Yeah.
I'm really into Larry Young. Jimmy Smith, I listened to, you know, I actually listened much less to Jimmy Smith in the beginning, but mostly to him now. My first guy that I was into was Melvin, who played with Wes McGovern. Jack McDuff was also a very big influence. Chester Thompson of Tower of Power.
Yeah.
On piano, I really love Lenny Tristano, his approach. But I'm into everybody, you know, Bud Powell. And I'm into all different kinds of music, too. I'm into classical music and English rock, everything.
Yeah.
Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going down this nostalgic route that we're going right here, if you could go back in time and witness a live performance, and it doesn't have to just be jazz, it could be anybody, who would you want to see, and where would you want to go? I
would like to go to the Fillmore East and see Hendrix or Zappa in 1971.
Yeah. Great.
Hendrix, I guess, was maybe a few years before. I don't think he was even alive in 71.
No, I think it was
70. He died.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would have loved to see have loved to see Woodstock.
Yeah.
I would have loved Van Halen in 1980.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I saw them a few years ago. They were crushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came back through there for a reunion with Ross, and it was a show.
Incredible.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, my brother went to the 84 when they came to Tennessee.
Sure, that was good.
That was at the height of everything.
Yeah, that was at the height of it. Mm-hmm.
I read, as a journalist, a music journalist, you could appreciate this. I read a very bizarre article with Eddie Van Halen last week, and Scott doesn't listen to music at all. I mean, literally, cars, not at all. I've read some bizarre things about kind of Hamills, and maybe that's just to keep that genius on the guitar pack. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. He sounds pretty wild.
He does. He's an eccentric, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, Diver Down, the guitar playing on that album, my God.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely the most influential and rock guitarist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. So let me kind of dig into jazz more specifically. Why do you jazz?
Well, I love jazz because it's a genre of music that it's okay for you to get older in, first of all. Like, there's work for a middle-aged man. I like that it's improvised and that it doesn't need to be perfect, which is not my strength.
Yeah.
My instrument kind of happened to by mistake that I started playing jazz and that I started playing B-3. You know, these were all things that just happened from circumstance. You know, when I moved to New York, I was only pianist. I had never even played. I think I maybe played a Hammond organ once in my life before I moved to New York. And I was doing a lot of blues gigs at that time. And I had to get a portable Hammond rig for my tours. And I got a Hammond, and for some reason that night I used to get called to play organ right down the street from my house. And after a week, I was playing once a week, and I didn't even know how to play organ really yet. But people in New York saw me, and they're like, "Oh, here's an organ player." So I kind of became an organ player.
Yeah.
I actually do a lot of different music in the middle. I play guitar. I had an album where I sang and played guitar, but it just didn't go over as well as my live show playing organ. So I'm, to a degree, people that are interested in my music are interested in playing Hammond organ and jazz, you know.
Yeah.
So that made my decision easier in which direction to go in, because I could have gone into a lot of directions. I think, you know, a lot of the people that were hiring jazz people, sensibilities to me are that's the perfect genre of music for me to, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a little too far out for pop music. Funk music too, you know, it's kind of the genre that I fit best in, I think.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: your friends, your family, your fans, anybody that's ever seen you, they all have a perception of who you are. Tell me who you think you are.
I think I'm just like everybody. I have this area that I'm interested in, that I've developed, and, you know, I try to push up and do it to inspire other people. It's really as simple as that.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Let's say we hook 10 years and we have a talk. First thing,
of course. I hope I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. So let's say we hook up and talk. First thing I'm going to ask is what's been going on. What's happened?
I'm going to want to tell you that I'm in a mansion in my hot tub sipping Cristal as I talk to you.
Nice. Very nice. Perfect. That's the perfect way to end this interview. Brian, hey, man, thanks for spending some time with me. It was great to get to know you, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Great interview.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over America, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Brian for his time, talent, and dedication to the jazz craft. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.